Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going on a massive cross-country road trip to really dive into the incredible culinary diversity of the United States. But instead of just looking at geography, we're going to literally taste our way through the ultimate regional menu. We'll be exploring the unique history, the local agriculture, and the fascinating immigrant stories that built the American palate, one incredibly distinct dish at a time. Here is our culinary itinerary for today, basically structured as a massive four-course tasting menu. We've got Course 1, breads and savory starters, Course 2, the barbecue belt, Course 3, chicken and coastal catch, and finally, Course 4, decadent regional desserts. Okay, Section 1, breads and savory starters. Let's kick off our first course by looking at some of the hearty, savory bites that really built regional identities across the map. So let's start over in Ohio. They bring us this completely unique microhistory with a crispy, pan-fried delight born right in the over-the-Rhine neighborhood of Cincinnati. It's called goetta, and it's a fantastic example of a hyper-local food tradition. Basically, locals took ground pork or beef, mixed it up with steel-cut oats and savory seasonings, formed it into a log, sliced it, and fried it up. The result? A super filling and, honestly, texturally brilliant starter. Moving in just a bit east, we run into a similarly resourceful dish known as scrapple. If you're in Pennsylvania or Delaware, you probably know this one. It's traditionally made from a mush of pork scraps and trimmings, but instead of oats, they combine it with cornmeal, wheat flour, and often this really rustic buckwheat flour, along with local spices. It's like the ultimate zero-waste approach to cooking that became this beloved regional staple. You get that perfectly crispy outside and a really rich inside. Now, these dishes offer a really stark contrast in American comfort food. Think about it. You've got the hearty, molasses-sweetened beans of snowy New England going head-to-head with the deep-fried, savory cornmeal hush puppies of the South. Up in Boston, baked beans are traditionally flavored with salt pork or bacon, and then heavily sweetened with molasses or maple syrup. Down south, though, you have the hush puppy. It's the savory bite made from cornmeal batter, rolled into a little ball, and deep-fried or baked to an absolute crisp. Two totally different regional approaches to a comforting starter. Moving right along to Section 2, the barbecue belt. Let's jump into our second course and dive into those heavier, intensely smoky flavors. And right away, we stumble into a fierce, absolutely fierce, regional rivalry. Texas slow-smoked beef brisket on one side and Carolina whole hog pulled pork on the other. See, Texas-style barbecue often completely ignores pork in favor of beef, brisket, specifically. And different regions within the state basically just argue over the type of wood used and the spice rubs. Meanwhile, over in North and South Carolina, pulled pork and whole hog pig pickins reign supreme. The Carolinas are famous for their sauces, ranging from this really tangy vinegar-based kick in eastern North Carolina to a highly distinct mustard-based tang down in the Midlands of South Carolina. But hey, these regional rivalries extend all the way out to the West Coast too, where two absolutely iconic burrito styles face off. San Francisco gave us the Mission Burrito. This thing is a meal so massive, you almost need an engineering degree just to wrap it securely in foil. It's heavily loaded with meat, beans, rice, cheese, sour cream, and pico de gallo. Down south, San Diego takes a totally different, way more purist approach. Their carne asada burrito is just chunks of carne asada, guacamole, and salsa. They deliberately avoid rice and beans. No filler, just a purely meat-centric experience. All right, let's bounce back east for a dish with a truly unique name. Upstate New York brings us the famously chaotic yet totally delicious garbage plate. Originating in Rochester, New York, this one requires a massive appetite. Diners basically pick two entrees, maybe a cheeseburger, Italian sausage, or white hots, and pair them with two sides, like home fries or macaroni salad. Then, this entire mountain of food gets topped with mustard, onions, and a deeply savory, slow-simmered ground beef meat sauce. It's a whole lot of food. These kitchen sink-style dishes are all about stacking massive amounts of ingredients to feed a crowd. We just talked about the Rochester plate, but then you've got the hearty Minnesota hot dish and the spice-laden South Carolina frogmore stew. In Minnesota, the hot dish is this beloved casserole that usually has a starch, a meat, frozen veggies, all mixed up with a canned soup. Down in the low country of South Carolina, frogmore stew, which you might know as a low country boil, throws shell-on shrimp, smoked sausage, corn, and red potatoes all together into a spice-heavy broth. Best part? It's typically served family-style, just dumped right out onto yesterday's newspaper. All right, on to Section 3, chicken and coastal catch. We are officially at the main courses now, exploring the bounty of American waters and some highly regional poultry preparations. Let's take a really rapid cross-country tour of America's waters. The Northeast gives us the iconic New England lobster roll, usually served up in a toasted, top-loading hot dog bun. Head down south, and you'll run into crawfish etouffee. That's shellfish cooked using a technique called smothering with a super rich roux and Cajun spices. And out west in San Francisco, there's Siopino. It's this incredibly vibrant Italian-American fish stew packed with tomatoes and a huge variety of local shellfish. Now, history gives us a really fascinating contrast here. The Hangtown Fry was made famous way back in the 1850s. It was this decadent California gold rush era combination of bacon and oysters, fried right in with eggs for miners who had just struck it rich. Meanwhile, on the exact opposite coast, the New England clam bake represents a completely different historical tradition. There, seafood and vegetables are meticulously steamed between layers of seaweed over burning hot rocks, right there on the sandy beach. Let's shift gears to our poultry mains. You might think chicken is just chicken, right? Wrong! Alabama-style barbecue chicken uses a totally unique, tangy white sauce developed by Bob Gibson in Decatur almost a century ago. Then you've got Nashville hot chicken, which takes buttermilk-marinated fried chicken and douses it in an aggressive oil-based cayenne pepper paste. Out in Springfield, Missouri, they do it differently, deep-frying pieces of chicken and serving them over rice with a soy and oyster sauce garnished with cashews. And we definitely can't forget Buffalo, New York, which gave us unbreaded, deep-fried wings coated in that legendary hot sauce made of cayenne pepper, vinegar, and butter. Okay, after all those rich, slow-smoked, and deep-fried mains, I really have to ask you, do you still have room for dessert? Because trust me, the regional sweets in the US are just as diverse as the savory dishes we just covered. Which brings us to Section 4, Decadent Regional Desserts. Let's head into our final course and explore the sweet treats that define American regional confectionery. It turns out our baking traditions have surprisingly deep roots. We see the famous Parker House roll invented in Boston back in the 1870s, which completely set a standard for hotel baking. By the 1880s, saltwater taffy was being heavily marketed in the Atlantic City area. Then, in the 1890s, in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, Makoto Hajiwara introduced the sugary, crisp wafer of the modern fortune cookie at the Japanese Tea Garden. Jump ahead decades later to 1978, and the recipe for the hummingbird cake, a lush banana pineapple spice cake, was published in Southern Living magazine by L.H. Wiggin, cementing its status as an absolute modern Southern classic. Now I want you to consider this number, 15. That is the staggering number of ultra-thin yellow cake layers separated by rich fudge in Maryland's famous Smith Island cake. Just imagine that for a second, stacking anywhere between 8 and 15 distinct, incredibly thin layers of cake and separating every single one of them with a thick, fudge-like chocolate frosting. It is quite literally an absolute masterpiece of regional dessert engineering. From the highly theatrical dark rum flambé of New Orleans' Bananas Foster to the simple cold crunch of Vermont's Sugar on Snow, dessert across the U.S. is a powerful sensory experience. Down in Louisiana, Bananas Foster is made by cooking bananas in butter and brown sugar. And then, here's the fun part, igniting dark rum and banana liqueur into a fiery flambé right before serving it over vanilla ice cream. Now contrast that dramatic flair with the quiet forests of Vermont or upstate New York. There, boiling hot maple syrup is poured directly over clean, cold snow to instantly harden it into candy during their seasonal sugaring off events. So as we wrap up this explainer and, mentally digest this massive menu, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. With such vastly different flavors born from local agriculture and incredibly diverse immigrant stories, what single dish could ever truly encapsulate such a remarkably diverse food landscape? From the slow-smoked briskets of Texas to hot maple syrup freezing on New England snow, the beauty of this menu isn't found in one single plate. It's the incredible, almost overwhelming variety of the whole spread. Thanks so much for joining me on this culinary tour, and I'll catch you in the next one.